Welcome back, guys. So today we're going to be having a look at adding a little bit more detail to your kind of straight track areas, what you can do to actually add some decor around the areas itself, and just how you go about kind of tying in your ballasting, which we've looked at in the last couple of episodes, into the layout itself. So today we've just got a small kind of section of track. What you tend to end up with usually is you'll have your straight pieces of track or any of your track on your baseboard. What you then tend to get is, right, I've now got to make scenery around that. How do you do it? And what I like to do is actually build up around it and add a little bit of depth and a few different levels to the area itself. So I have already started on this side here, just to give you just a quick example of what we'll be making on this side. We're going to mirror that. If you've already got your track down and it's obviously on your flat baseboard and everything like that, and you don't have any levels built in yet, what you can just do is add small sections of kind of levels and 3D just by using some styrene sheets. Put them up on top of your baseboard and then you can shape them and build them into the layout to make them look like they were there all along. And we'll be looking into that basically today. So kind of what I've done, this would be your baseboard here where your track is. You add this styrene sheet on top of it. This would obviously be the back of your layout, so that you'd have your back scene here with maybe your trees on and things like that. But then you can actually add this section on this side and make the track look like it's kind of chiseled into the landscape. Looks really, really nice. So what we're going to do first off is just basically mirror this side onto here. I'm just going to show you how I did this. So what I always tend to use is either the plaster cloth sheets, which we do sell on the website, some plaster of Paris, or if you are doing kind of a larger area or you're just wanting a little bit more detail, then what I like to use is some sculptor mold. I will put a link of that in the description. You can get it on Amazon. So we're just going to take just a little bit there and just put it into our pot. Just like that, and then all we're going to add is just a little bit of water. You don't want too much, and you can add more as you go along as well. So just mixing just a little bit more in there. There we go. Perfect. What you're kind of looking for is this sort of plasticine consistency. That just allows you to kind of mould it into whatever shapes you're wanting to do. So I just like to just get quite a good bit down first off. So just really pushing it into the layout there. And just getting a smooth surface, and then you can add that detail in afterwards. So as you can see, I have covered up the track as well. So I've just put some tape over it. For now, you can just use masking tape or just a piece of card if you're careful as well. You just don't want to get this stuff onto the track because it can be a bit of a nightmare to get out. So again, just pushing that all the way along. Same as usual, same with your ballast and everything like that. Do it in smaller sections. It just makes everything a lot easier. It means that you can just really take your time. This stuff does stay fairly pliable for kind of around 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Depends how much water you add, of course, but it is brilliant for just working all the way until it dries. So you can get it roughly where you want it, and then as it starts to go hard, you can shape it into more detailed kind of areas and different sort of sections. And what's brilliant as well, if you are using rock molds or you've just bought some kind of rocks and things, you can put them up against this, work the sculptor mold around them and just get them to hold into the rock face. So if you're doing a bit of a steeper hill and you're wanting those kind of rocks just to protrude out of it, then this stuff works absolutely brilliantly for getting that kind of realistic finish. So there we are. So that's most of it kind of covered now. So all I'm going to start working on is using the last little bits just to add a little bit of detail, a few little ridges, little bumps and everything from there. It is a little bit messy. You might want to wear some gloves. As you probably know by now, I just tend to just jump straight in and you can clean up afterwards. Now, you might be able to notice there's a few marks that I've made on this styrene already. basically that'll come to light in the later in kind of either this episode or the next one. But basically you want to do very much the same thing. Plan out what you're going to do before you do it. You don't want to put this stuff down and then find out actually I needed it to be lower, I need it to be 2 foot to the left, anything like that. Plan out what you're going to do around it and then start working in with your details such as this, because it does dry very, very hard. And you can bring it back up again, but obviously once you turn it back up, it's kind of, that's it used, if you like. So it's just better just to do it right in the first place. So what we're going to be doing here is a little, not town scene as such, but just a little house, just showing off some of the new products as well that we've got, and just how you can add detail to your straight sections of track. So the more that you handle this and the more that you kind of run your fingers across like I'm doing here, the smoother it gets. Again, if you're doing kind of rocks and things, then you might want to leave it to dry a little bit more before you touch it again, just to get the sharper edges. For me, I'm just going to do a little hill here, so I do want it quite smooth. Right, so I've got that pretty much the shape that I want it now. Again, just as it's coming in to dry, we're just going to just smooth that off as much as we can with our fingers, and then you're going to end up with that really, really smooth looking finish there. Ready for paint. Super. So once you're happy with that and you have got it how you want it, what you want to do is leave it to fully set. Obviously it's full of moisture, so you want all that moisture to escape. You want it to fully dry out and harden. A couple of hours, just have a check on it. It will have hardened up by then, just to check that everything is happy and how you want it. If there are any gaps, you can obviously just add a little bit more in there. And then I would definitely say leave it overnight, just to fully kind of harden before you touch it with paint or anything like that. So I'll join you back when we've waited for it to dry. Right, welcome back. So we've left that to dry. Now what we're going to get on with is just colouring this kind of area, getting it ready for the ballast to go in. What you want to do is make sure that all of your painting is done prior to any product that isn't going to be painted. So obviously your ballast is going to go in that colour that it's delivered with, so you want all of the painting done around the outside of it so you don't get any on the ballast once it's in. Same up here, so I did say that obviously we're planning to do a little bit with this area up here later on. So I'm planning to put a path here. So again, if I was putting some of the, so we're using some of maybe the sand textures, or some of our grey tarmac textures and things like that as well. Again, a product that doesn't really need to be painted, so make sure you get all of your paint section done first, so then we can put that path product on top of that. So let's get started. Now I like to use a mix of different paints. I use quite a lot of Vallejo paints with the airbrush. For this one I am just going to use just a hand brush. So we're just going to get a little bit of the raw umber. Again, depending on how dark you're wanting everything. So I'm just going to add a few drops of white in there. And then, because it's just going to be an under texture this one, I am going to add a little bit of paint thinner as well. Just a couple of drops. And all that's going to do is just allow us just to get a little bit more out of it than we might have otherwise had. And again, it's just trial and error. So what I'm trying to show you here is the fact that you don't need an extensive collection of paints. You can use pretty much any colour. and get something that you are happy with. And then what I'm going to do, I'm just going to mix up 2 different colours just in the same little pot here. So I'm just going to add a bit of the sand texture to this one, sand colour should I say, and then I can use that just as a bit of a variant as we go along. So let's get started. So again, we're going to be quite liberal, mixing together these 2 different colours. And this is obviously just going to be an undertone to our grass area and to any other textures that we add to the side as well, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Obviously, if you did have a much larger area to do, then you could use the airbrush for this. Might be a little bit quicker. So I am just leaving that little section there just because it is a little bit steeper than I was planning for it to be. So I might actually just put a little bit of a rock face kind of protruding out there. So seeing kind of what we're looking for here, the same as my layout at home. It is a sort of 80s, 70s, 80s UK based layout, so I am going for darker colours here, just to kind of match that sort of colouring of the UK. But obviously this will all be underneath the grass, so it is just an undertone, just to make sure you don't see any of the white sticking through. So just bringing together those 2 colour textures there, just to give a bit of variation to the land. And just adding again just that little bit more detail. It is going to be only very, very subtle because you are going to see kind of a lot of this underneath the grass, and underneath the bushes and things that we put here, but you will notice that slight variation and you'll just appreciate it as well. So when you're doing the rock face, obviously this one is only very, very small, but you're just bringing together again a couple of colours on your palette, either grey and white or black and white, depending on how sort of rough your rock face is going to be. It's just all about just kind of blending those colours together, just working with it. You can always add more, and the beauty is with paint you can also take it away, so just give it a go. If you're not too happy with it, just paint over and start it again. That's absolutely fine. So I'm going to get that on there, then just using just pure white, we're going to just kind of dry brush a little bit over the top, just to give some highlights to those rocks. And if you're doing obviously jaggedy rocks and you were using a mould, then what you'd want is to use the edge of your brush with some white against it and give some real proper sharp edges to your obviously highlight bits there. So again, just going to leave that to dry now, and then we'll be back and we'll get started with the greenery. Right, okay, so given a little while just for that paint to dry there, we're going to move on to just start adding some greenery. So again, what you want to do, it's up to you how far you want to go with it, how dark or how overgrown you want to make your areas. So always test a few pieces first. So I've just taken some of our dark green hedge, and basically what I'm going to do, I'm just going to test a few kind of areas here, just to see where I like it, where I think it's going to look quite effective, and just how we're going to kind of work the scene to work into what we wanted it to do. So, and obviously you just need to make sure that you've got clearance as well for you, any coaches, carriages, obviously anything that you've got kind of going past down here as well. And then what I've got here as well is just some coarse green grass. It's a mid-green, this one. So I'm going to put those pieces to the side, roughly remembering where I had them. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to take some of our, just a PVA glue. And what I like to do is put some of this grass underneath where the hedges are going to go. Because what you tend to get is a little bit of leaf fall and things on the side. So this side, obviously, like I say, usually would be up against your backboard. So I'm going to go quite heavy on this side in terms of vegetation. Because then what it does allow you to do as well, if you have got a back seam up against this, it allows you to hide the seam quite seamlessly. And once again, it's all just about adding variation in colour, because nothing in nature is exact. So that's pretty much where I would like that. Obviously it does look like quite a stark contrast at the moment between our painted area and our new grassed area, but it will all blend in once we start kind of bringing it all together. So what I can do, because again I've got a removable piece, is just turn mine up. What you can do is either just blow it kind of off the area that you've done, or just use a vacuum just to kind of suck up any loose bits there, and then perfect. So move on to the fun bit, which is static grass. So today I'm going to be using the 2mm summer mix, and I have also got a little bit of the autumn mix as well, which I might decide to mix in as we kind of go along. So very similar again. I'm just going to put down some PVA glue. Doesn't need to be too thick, just as long as everywhere where you want your grass is covered. So if you've never used static grass before, it is absolutely amazing. So basically what you want is a static grass applicator. Basically how the work is, the applicator provides a static kind of electricity across the glue and across the baseboard. The grass reacts to that as it comes through the applicator. It gets statically charged and it stands perfectly straight, which then lands in your glue. And then theory is, as the glue dries, it keeps the grass straight upwards, basically. So basically how this works is you've got a little pin on here. You put that pin either just against your baseboard or into your baseboard, turn on the applicator and start sprinkling the grass. Again, it does appear to be quite a messy job, but you do get a lot of it back. You can hoover it back up and collect it all. So you can see that stark kind of contrast where we put the coarse grass really blended in now. Just kind of becomes part of the scene. And then what we've got is, I said I'd remember which one of these it was. I don't believe I have, but never mind. Again, obviously as you are doing this, what you do want to do is let each sort of section dry. For the sake of me just kind of showing you how to do it, I'm just kind of speeding through before it has done, which isn't always the best idea. Right, and then we'll keep moving on. What you've got to remember to do is touch the pin that you're using on the end of the applicator back to the applicator after you've turned it off, because otherwise if you touch it within a couple of minutes you will get a little bit of a shock, just as that static energy kind of discharges into your hand. So that's perfect. So what I have got here as well, I've run out of places to put things, is just some dark earth scatter. Again, can be found on the website. I do use this quite a lot all over the layout, and again, it's when you're modelling kind of UK based things, what you normally find is grass has died in certain areas, or you've just got kind of darker areas of things underneath trees as well. If you've got trees on your layout, a little bit of dark earth scatter and leaf scatter, it just works really, really well just to kind of show sort of dead leaves, fallen sort of foliage. So I'm just going to just put a little bit of that just around our bushes here. And again, another colour just to tie in that story, just to tie in the realism. Right, so what I have got here as well is some grass tufts. And these just work just to add just some little spots of darker colours, darker grass, a little bit longer, just for some variation in the scene. Right, let's move on to this side. So again, similar sort of thing. We're just going to rush through this side. So the beauty is with the static grass, you can just use it all again. So all of that we've just kind of tipped off there, we can just put that straight back in and use it again somewhere else on the layout. So you're not wasting anything when you're doing it. If you get to a point and you think, yeah, I'm going to leave that now, you might then look at it tomorrow and say, actually, I'm going to put another bush here, or I'm going to put a cow in, or anything at all. You can just add in at any time, but it's always better to sit back and kind of look at it, think about what might actually be happening in the layout, in the scene. Again, just using some of this coarse grass, just sprinkling it in to the static grass while the glue's still wet, and just getting just a little variation through our grass there. So again, the little mistake I made here, I did make it a little bit too steep on this side, so you could add grass and it wouldn't look out of place, but it is maybe just a little bit too steep for grass to kind of grow in real life. And what's really nice with the grass as well is, especially with the longer stuff, once the glue starts to dry or has fully dried, you can actually just use your finger just to move the grass around a little bit, because obviously at the moment all the grass is stuck straight upwards, but you can use your finger just to push that grass around and just give it kind of a realistic look with the wind. Face it all different directions and what have you. And again, just have a play around with it, just do whatever you think looks right, and that makes it right. If you're happy with it, then it's perfect. So I have got just some lichen here. It's a yellow one. This is taken from the autumn mix of lichen. And again, just works really well just to add just a little dash of colour. So I've got a birch tree here. We have got tons of different types of trees on the website that you can take a look at. So that's going to go here quite nicely. Yeah, perfect. What I am going to do is I'm just going to trim just a few of these roots off just around the edges. Roots are brilliant, but just a little bit too big just for the area that I want it. What you could do is you could take this off, so there's a little seam down here on all of our trees. You could take the root system off altogether if you don't want any above the ground. Again, more than welcome to do whatever you think looks right. So, I'm going to put that down there, like that. Pushing that into the layout with the glue on the back. And that's going to set there quite nicely. And then I'm just going to take a little bit more dark earth when I find where I've put it. And that dark earth's just going to dull down our root system a little bit. So we're just going to add just that birch tree there. Again, it's all just about doing it, just testing different things out, seeing what looks right, seeing what works, and then going from there. So I think that's come together quite nicely. Again, could keep adding things to it, but I think for now, especially with it being, for me, quite a short piece of track, I think that's going to work really, really nice when I get all of the ballast down and everything like that and bring the whole sort of thing together. I'm just going to add one more little bush just underneath the tree area here. So that's going to pretty much wrap up our video there, I think. So I'm just going to take this cover off the track line that's been protecting it. You can see how much that I've actually got down there. So that's working quite perfectly there. Looks really, really nice, and what I'm going to go do now is ballast in that area. So once you're happy with it, once you've got all of that kind of painting done and everything like that, that's when you want to do your ballast. Obviously, if you look at our last video, it'll show you how to ballast your track. Very similar, well, exactly the same when you've got scenery around, obviously just making sure that you're not getting any ballast kind of stuck in the air on top of a tree or on top of one of your bushes or anything like that. But yeah, so I'm very happy with that now. So I'll see you in the next video when I've got the ballast done and we move on to the top half of the layout up here. Thank you very much for watching, guys. We'll see you later.